Welcome back to the CTO Playbook, the podcast dedicated to helping CTOs excel. What if the most powerful thing you can bring to your engineering team isn't certainty, but curiosity? In today's episode, I sit down with Massimo Belloni, head of machine learning and data science at Docplanner and author of The Imposter, the only newsletter specifically about machine learning leadership. Massimo has learned, as many of us have, that leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about building trust, earning legitimacy, and showing up even when no one's watching. If you've ever wondered what engineers really need from their leaders, this conversation might just reshape how you see your role. So important in these times of mega change. I'm your host, Adam Horner, coach to CTOs from startups to enterprises and everything in between, helping you lead with clarity, confidence, and strategic impact. And if you feel like you're figuring it out the hard way, you're not alone. That's exactly why I created the CTO Playbook, a podcast and platform built for tech leaders just like you. Explore coaching, cohorts, and ways to stay connected at thectoplaybook.com, helping you build your own playbook for your path at your pace. Now let's meet Massimo and get into his playbook. Massimo, welcome to the CTO Playbook. It's great to finally sit down properly.
Amazing.
Because we're both on the CTO Craft 100 list, which is, it's a good list. I'm convinced that there's a bunch of merit in there, but I think there's also a bunch of people who just write more consistently than others. So it's good to have someone who actually deserves to be on it.
Amazing. Thanks, Adam. No, I think that was quite humbling and rewarding to be part of this list. There are amazing people, you included, and sometimes you don't see all the points in retrospect. You just see them in retrospect, right? And then you're part of a list of 100 people worldwide. It's quite rewarding.
Excellent. So let's talk about you for a little bit. So you've led ML, you've led data teams across industries. A lot of people wouldn't even connect together. Yeah. I'm excited for this one. But can you just sort of, before we go into the leadership philosophy, just take us back a little bit. What's the story that really shaped how you lead today? Not the polished LinkedIn answer, the real moment you thought, this is what leadership's about.
Yes, I think that, again, without trying to connect all the dots at the moment, because it's a very complex story, I would say that nowadays, if someone would ask me in a one-liner what's my leadership philosophy and what I believe in is, we're leading people. Sometimes people look at, again, we have a role in technology, and so they would expect that we are technology experts, and so the way in which we lead, the way in which we manage these massively complex systems is technology first. But the reality is that, again, I took some time because I have an engineering background. I did my homeworks. I was an engineer myself once, and I was very concerned with, I'm going to be able to do that role, the more senior role, because it's more technically complex. But actually, when I actually started to manage very complex systems that I had no clue how they were functioning, my team was unprepared. And then in the end, they managed. So we could argue that they were not unprepared, right? But from the outset, none of us, and we were talking about people with tens of years of experience in very complex tasks, we had no clue. We were worried and we were scared, and it's very good and honest to tell this to everyone that is listening to us around. Massimo was managing teams at Bumble, one of the largest dating apps in the world. Now he's concerned with healthcare. Of course, we know what we are doing. Your data is safe, etc. But the reality is that our jobs is around people. My job is around people, and this is something that I didn't have clear when I started. I still try to be the smartest person in the room. I try to be the one that was more technically competent, and I was trying to speak in meetings and be the one that was trying to solve everyone's issue. And of course, I'm accountable to potentially in the end have to solve these issues, but not directly. My goal and my philosophy, it's around building people and building great teams, solving great questions and topics. And this is potential, and likely we're going to touch about that later together. But the industries are not connected with each other. I come from housing, then I did dating and friendship, and now I'm working in healthcare. What glue everything together is realistically my curiosity and my sense of getting bored. When I think that I know a little bit too much about a domain that I didn't know anything about some years before, but it's trying to glue together different interests that I have, but also finding the right culture, the right setup, the right company, the right growth stage to actually be able to do over and over again what I like the most. doing. That is setting up a group of people that work well together, and they're not worried and they don't fear any kind of technical task. Probably that's the one-liner.
I love that. It's funny, isn't it? None of us sort of realize the job isn't about the tech until suddenly the tech is the least of our worries.
The under 99% of the issues. And that's something that like now we start to mentor other managers or folks that are interested in growing into management. And they're like, oh, I'm not a technical person. Like sometimes there are people that say, oh, I'm not a technical person. How am I going to be able to do ABC? And I'm like, of course, we are working in tech. We need to have a baseline understanding of tech. But trust me that if I have to rank or classify 100 issues or 100 complexities that I dealt with in the last 10 years of my career, 95 are non-technical. Operations, people, motivation, culture, money, budget. 5% is technical, but are the easiest ones to solve.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I became a CTO, I thought engineers wanted me to have all the answers, strong direction, technical decisiveness, the whole robotic oracle thing, I guess. Yeah. But they really wanted autonomy, really, wasn't it? Mastery, space to grow, of course, which I gave them eventually.
100%. And engineering is a mindset. I know that we are potentially derailing, but I was having this conversation earlier today with a guy in my team that engineering is a mindset. It's not a technological stack. It's not things that you know or you don't know. Then granted, let's say the classical academical curricula or your experience up to a certain point shapes the way in which you see things. But engineering is indeed a mindset. So it's not that the greatest engineers that I work with, I would work with them in the blink of an eye, even if they have no clue about the problem that we are solving, the tech stack that we're working with, but because I trust the approach that they have in solving problems. And making sure that you put them in the right situation, in the right circumstances, and building the right environment around them is what actually makes great leaders and great teams different one with the other.
Yeah. And something else that I sort of learned the hard way is that a lot of leadership work is also kind of invisible. I mean, in my first startup, I spent weeks quietly wiring up technical things, but CI/CD, infrastructure automation. And my CEO kind of just accused me of feathering the nest. In fact, you can go and listen to that on episode 2 if you want to hear that. But he meant it kindly, I think. But it was a classic moment where the hard work was invisible until everything suddenly moved fast and things suddenly started working.
100%.
And have you got moments like that?
100%. I was having this realization actually talking about 3-4 years ago, and I was having a chat with my direct manager back at that time was unavailable for some things or for a period. I don't remember the technicalities, and I was just chatting with other senior leaders in the company to get some alignment, like the day-to-day job that we all do, right?
Yeah.
And there was this leader in the company that I was personally more close with, was an amazing person, still is, and she asked me all of a sudden, but Massimo, which are your leadership principles? And I was, okay, but I know that I show up every day. I know that I try my best. I know that there are things that potentially do more often than others, but I never sit down and I said, okay, these are my leadership principles. This is that's the way in which I operate. But because again, back then I was building my own career inside that company as a trusted leader. People were coming to give me more responsibility. Oh, there is a team struggling. Take the team as well. Yes, of course, let's do it. But I never actually sit down and try to realize why what I was doing back then or what I was lucky enough to be doing, I don't know, was actually functioning. And I wrote a post about this in my newsletter around, there is a lot of literature around teams that are struggling. Right? Oh, your team is struggling, you have to do ABC, you need to start introducing this process, you need to do performance management, but there is very little literature on your team is working well. Question why? And it's not that I completely crack the codes, right? And as you said, it's perfect because you just show up every day, right? You put the best of what you can, and you potentially inherit a situation that is not working well. You are kickstarting a team, something is off. 6 months after, you look back and you're like, oh, actually things improved, right? And you don't notice it day after day. You notice just things, and this is general. I don't know, there is this very famous Steve Jobs speech in a university where you can just see things in retrospect, right? Don't question too much things while you are doing them, just trust the process.
Yeah, trust the process.
But this is something that is completely relatable to what I do. If someone comes, okay, you need to fix that team, right? What would you do? And I'm like, okay, after 10 years, I also have a good ability to say something under pressure and just fill the stage. But the reality is that I'm not the person with the massive vision of I'm going to do A, B, C, D in 1 year. I'm going to show up, be intentional every day, I have things that I believe in. I'm going to do A, B, C. And then in 1 year, 6 months, whatever is the time horizon that, again, where I'm committing to, I'm going to look back and I'm going to say, look, that's the most important question to answer as a leader. Are things better now than when you took over?
Yeah.
And this is something that I sometimes ask to the leaders or the managers that I work with on. I don't want to have too granular updates. Or, of course, like if you need them, I'm here to support you. But it's more, tell me what's your end state, right? What's the end state that you want to work towards? Because another big issue that I find when you work with high-performing people generally, and oftentimes they become managers, and it's an issue that I had myself at the beginning of my career. You work hard on something, you achieve it, and then you're like, no, I'm not satisfied. It's not perfect. I want to do something different, but it's important to write down, be intentional. That is going to be my end goal, because when you're going to get to the end goal, I'm going to be there telling you, look at what you achieved. The situation now is much better now than it was 1 month ago, 2 months ago, 1 year ago, when you took over this team and this situation. And these are the hidden issues of leadership, that we're always busy and we don't have time to just sit down and see the situation from an external perspective.
Yeah, and that is quite hard to see things from a different perspective, because I think that's one of those areas you kind of got to be really curious about and kind of look into it deeply. Because I mean, that's another one of your points. I just could segue on to your point about curiosity, which resonated with me, because I had a CEO who loved asking, why. Just sit there and ask why. I remember one board meeting, there was some point, I can't remember what it was now. I said, here's a suggestion of what we should do. We should go ahead and do these things. And then he's challenged me. And you said, why? Well, here's a bunch of things that, elsewhere that we could do, and here's my reasons for it. And then he was really surprised. And I just said, well, okay. I was like, what? You're not even going to push back on it? You're not going to? And I was like, no. It was a good argument. It was well positioned. It was a good question. Why? I agree with it. But it was that curiosity that sort of flipped my perspective to view it the way he was.
No, like 100% on that. And this is potentially something that I also learned at my own expenses. As an engineer, if you pivot into engineering leadership from an engineering background or a technical background, usually, again, for how being a great engineer doesn't equate to be a great manager, the pattern is there. Senior leaders tend to trust very good engineers with getting into leadership positions or positions with high responsibility, right? And as a senior engineer, you are evaluated on you knowing all the answers to some extent, or you working hands-on something.
Yeah.
So the first thing that you do when you get promoted to, let's say, being accountable for a team is try to get all the answers, right? You are trying to get everywhere to solve everyone's issues. The shift that make me go to sleep at night, right, as a former engineer, is I don't need to have all the answers, but I need to be somewhat curious and passionate about the problems. Because this is the way in which actually I can manage with the accountability that I have over a large space. It's not that I need to be in every details, and it's not because it wouldn't be possible. It's not something that it wouldn't be possible. The organization is too large. But every decision or every concept or everything that gets into my table, the minimum that I can do is asking why. If someone comes and tells me, there was this problem, this is the solution that we picked, realistically, I don't even know sometimes the details about the technological stack, the history about something, but I ask you why. But I do it even because on a deeply personal level, I'm a very annoying person, right? I'm very curious. I like to be in the details of stuff. I actually have genuinely wide range of interest, nothing in depth, everything at the surface, but I have a lot of interest. And this is a personal trait that I try to bring in my day-to-day as well. On always ask why, be curious about the problem, be passionate about how someone put together their skills, how they traverse the space to get to that solution, because the reality is that 99% of the outcome is the process that you followed. And all the things that you tried and didn't work. And if I see that this is robust and the person, even more simplistically, they are not worried about giving you their reasoning, right? It's already speaks very highly about whatever solution they build, even if nowadays I'm not in the position of having a reliable opinion on a lot of deeply technological topics.
Yeah. At that stage, you just need to understand the way people work much more than about the way that... but talking about Because sometimes we do make these mistakes, right? So if we talk about the mistakes, and I've had these phases where you go through from, I'd sort of swing between opinions like, oh, this is genius, to oh, this is a slow moving disastrous catastrophe waiting to happen. And have you had moments where you weren't sure that your own leadership was landing, something that tested your confidence?
And this is the answer that I always give, even especially like when you get interviewed for new roles, or tell me once that you messed up. And this story is true. Again, I'm not adding all the details, but I think that it's going to be interesting. Nevertheless, I was in that period from being a very trusted senior engineer, and then getting a successful team and starting to scale up the team to a level where by yourself you can't be everywhere. Right. So to some extent, I had the boost of confidence of in the last 6 months, 7 months, I was right and my team was right a lot of the times, versus I haven't really built up a muscle back then, be able to have an opinion on something on things that I didn't know deeply. Right. And we were also in a situation where, I don't know, the team was understaffed. There were issues in delivery here and there. And so me and another colleague of mine were in charge of a lot of these quick fire decisions. Oh, Massimo, what do you think about that? Do you agree or not? Perfect, I agree. Let's do it. Right. Very suboptimal, and of course, a disaster in the making. But we were in this situation where, okay, I was taking a lot of these quick fire decisions very often. And oftentimes these things wouldn't say that we're getting into myself, because I tend to be a quite risk adverse person. But, so if things make sense and the 2 or 3 information that I managed to grasp quickly makes sense, perfect, let's do it. The issue is that back then we made a massive mistake that caused, let's say, a big enough team to work over the weekend to fix it, and the week after to actually put together all the pieces and work on a rollback strategy that took some days, if not some weeks, to be put together.
Wow.
And what this taught me in the end on, we are paid, and that was a massive shift on, as a leader, sometimes it's a very, let's say, blurred job. There are some days that things don't move. There are days that are very frustrating because you have the feeling that you did nothing, right? You know what I mean? I'm evaluated on 2 things. The first one is the people that I decide to work with and the people that I'm able to motivate and put together. But then the second thing is the decisions that I take.
Right.
If I don't have a process for building and giving these decisions and opinions when I'm not the expert. And second, I don't have any process or emergency mode to say, guys, I'm not confident, let's stop it here, I will never scale in this job. That was an instance where I didn't have any of the 2 in place. Clearly, I didn't have the right data. I didn't have the right insights to take that decision. And I'm not joking, was late on a Friday. Or also having the processes of just, guys, it's late on a Friday. This can wait Monday, right? Even deciding when it's the right time to make a call and when it's not the right time to make a call. Even being human in understanding that, guys, it's too risky to take a decision on 2 p.m. on a Friday. This is not urgent. Like I made it become urgent with my mistake, right? This decision could have easily waited by Monday, and probably with a fresh mind, we would have taken a better decision, or with the same level of mess up, the team would have had a full week to fix, rather than scrambling on Slack on a Saturday, right? And that's one of the most useful moments of my career as a leader on, I am as good as the decisions that I take. Since my currency is taking decisions, I need to have a process, and my words should be always baked by story, insights, data. And it's better to say and be honest, guys, I'm not in a position to make this call, than messing up big times. Then again, there are nuances. It's not that you always have to have all the data, but this is it's another episode, right?
Yeah.
But if something sounds off and look off, you are the one. It's where the story. If you're not the one, say no. The snowball is gonna eat you and your team, and potentially the company, and potentially people that have nothing to do with my mess up, at the weekend ruin because of my mess up. And this shifted the perspective quite a lot.
I bet. And because building up that level of trust is something that takes years to build up. And normally we build it up quite slowly, carefully. And as you say, with the process. But then the one time you step out of that process, or didn't have a process in your case, that's it. It's gone. It only takes one quick decision and the trust is eroded.
100%. We are in the business of trust. When you start a new job as a leader, and sometimes people reach out to where you should start, and there is also a newsletter episode on this topic. We are in the currency of trust. We could be the best leaders out there, or we could, let's say, be the ones that in potential can take the best decision with the best experience, with the best background. But if quickly enough, we are not able to get the trust. And trust sometimes, and a lot of people, I don't know, that could be me, but a lot of people are concerned with this, let's say, corporate lingo or learning how to influence exactly. Sometimes I might be too simplistic and I'm going to get a cold shower in some years in this topic, but I think that trust is, even in the workplace, is a very human topic.
Yeah.
You build trust with a human, with a person that is actually acting for a company, for a specific role. If you are not able to build that trust soon enough, you're going to have a lot of issues, because also when you climb up and you become senior leader, director, executive, and whenever there are budgeting conversation or there is leverage that you need to put in, sometimes I wouldn't say that these are favors that others do you, but again, you need to have numbers, you need to have stories, you need to have data, but all in all, is people that together are bringing forward a company, a team, an organization, etc. Building this trust is key, and losing this trust is easy.
Yeah.
If you make mistakes, if you come across as someone that is not trustworthy, that is not, let's say, executing as they were promising to, if you're not someone that is generally helpful to others, because sometimes, especially if you are a backend engineer, you are evaluated on the code that you ship, the architecture, etc. Then, of course, if you're an executive, I have my KPIs, I have my organization, let's say, I know what I'm getting evaluated on. But to some extent, is also, am I be helpful to the rest of the team, the rest of the executive team, the rest of the leadership team, to generate value to the company? And sometimes things are simple, and we take for granted as much as simple as building trust, getting trust, being helpful, helping others to achieve their goals as well. Because in the future, I might need the help of this, senior director of product for actually making sure that something gets prioritized. There is something that my team needs for this very hidden and mysterious objective. We are also in the business of trust. Let's put it like that.
Yeah. And that thing about, doing the right thing and helping out, being genuinely helpful, I think it's one of those things where it's almost its own natural currency. Like, it's almost always in your interest to be genuinely helpful. Okay, I mean, if you come across scenarios where the people who seem to be being helpful, but they've actually got an agenda that they're secretly pushing of their own.
Again, to some extent, this is a little bit the part on, let's say, corporate strategy, corporate lingo. It's also I would say that is also very cultural. Again, I had the privilege to work, and again, I changed a lot of industry, but also not intentionally, but I work with colleagues from all over the world, right? I was working with Americans much more in my previous experiences. Now I work for a much more European company. In the past, I was more in a smaller Dutch scale up. And it's interesting to see that, again, executives and leaders tend to approach their job very differently based on, let's say, the work culture where they were brought up with. Like, I'm Italian, but I never worked in Italy, right? So if someone tells you work similarly to an Italian colleague that they work with, it's impossible. I probably... my working approach is very Dutch, but because my first work experience was that, so very direct, very pragmatic, very honest. But to some extent, everyone, and probably again, I don't know how this is going to come across, but everyone that is in a senior leadership, executive position is hardworking, high achiever, a lot ambitious person that has their own agenda. Everyone has their own agenda. I have my own agenda. Realistically, in your job, you have your own agenda. We have a goal of, next year I want to be in this role. In 3 years I want to do that. I want to, speak in podcasts more. I want to have a newsletter. Everyone that is high performing has their own agenda. I have mine. But then again, at the level 0 is being human on if someone needs my help and wants my help, at the best of what I can, I'm going to be helpful to them. But then if someone is helping me out because they have their own agenda, or if they're helping me out just because, again, for empathy or because they want to be helpful, as long as they help me out, it's okay, right? I don't know. I might be a little bit naive on that, but I tend to remove a lot of layers of complexity I managed to get, again, a couple of promotion, a responsibility role here and there. And trust me, I was never strategic in the decisions that I take, or let's say ruthless in the decision that I take. Sometime back, I was chatting with an ex-colleague of mine. They left the company, were just catching up after a while, and then I don't know how they were new to a leadership role elsewhere and stuff, and they were asking me, again, can you please teach me how to be influential? Because I got the feeling that, let's say, in the past, our shared experience, you were massively influential. And I said, look, it's a compliment, I take it, but I just try to be open, transparent, helping others. Don't mess up when I prefer to underpromise and overdeliver than the other way around. But again, don't overcomplicate the strategy in that regards. And if someone is helpful, just to answer your question, I took a massive detour, but if someone is helpful, I don't try to read that much.
I think it's a fantastic approach. I worked in one startup where they literally had one of their values as always assume good intentions. And I think that's great at sort of stripping out all of that complexity and the politics that there might be there and just treating something on the face value. It's much, much simpler, isn't it?
100%.
Well, if we let's try and bring some of your playbook to life, because I mean, I think we've hit quite a lot of the wonderful key points in there. But if we try and sort of bring out some of the key habits that you have whenever you're going in, let's say, for example, you're going to go into a new organization, what would be sort of the key steps you go through, and then just talk us through those bits?
No, like 100%. And this is fresh to my mind because, again, I was reasoning about this recently because I got in a new leadership role, in a new company, in a new industry with a team that I didn't help out putting together myself.
So front of mind then.
100%. I would say building trust early because, again, took me a while, but we are in the field and the industry of building a relationship, building trust. Then, of course, you need also a network outside of your current company, but that's a topic for another time, right? But understanding right away who are the people and the humans that in that specific setup that you are asked to help improve are the ones that have more influence, that have more knowledge, that have more, wisdom, and get their trust and build the trust and the rapport with them first thing. Then the second might sound very simplistic probably, but I will try to explain it in a way that is at the second or third layer of abstraction that is just working as hard as you can. Yeah. That is not just, you have to work hard to get things in life, because no, there's a component of luck, there is a component of skills, there is a component of being in the right place at the right time, etc. But it's also true that working hard is also a matter of trying a lot of things, especially leadership, giving the good example, leading by example, making sure that no matter what happens, you show up every day and you try your best to stay close to what matters and to also show to others. Because in a leadership position, especially when you manage a lot of people indirectly, they don't have a real grasp of who you are on a personal level or which are the decisions that you take on a day-to-day basis. But if they see that you're a person that genuinely cares, that show up, that does things properly, sometimes, again, wouldn't say that it's enough by itself, but already shows a lot and make people trust you more, especially in a circumstance where you don't have the chance to work together that often. Staying curious, it's something that I already mentioned on. Probably I'm going to retire, or hope that I'm going to be lucky enough to be able to retire when I'm not going to have the curiosity of solving problems. Like sometimes I see a problem and I want to solve it. And this is a blessing and a curse for this job because, again, I see so many problems that I'm not sure if I can solve all of them. But whenever I see a problem, even in my personal life, I want to fix it. And this is my driver to ask the questions, to actually take the issues home, to actually follow up with the team member that once asked me something, and then something else, and then I might have others, but there is this Amazon product or leadership principle. And I was taking notes, but I don't remember it. I don't remember how it's called. I was reading some time ago that Amazon product managers, before starting the PRD or starting the details or what they want to build, they try to picture the blog post announcing the feature is going to look like.
Yeah, they write the press release first.
Indeed. And then they build things in retrospect. Yeah. Right? This is extremely powerful because this is something that I also understood myself in retrospect when people were asking me, how did you manage to do ABC? And that's the way in which I also coach other leaders, right? What's your goal? Tell me how good would look like for this in 6 months. And then you start projecting your day-to-day as if my team had that skill that at the moment doesn't have. The communication style or the rituals are exactly as they will. And then you build in retrospect. That is much easier than, having a step-by-step process and then see what actually is going to look like in 6 months. It's completely the opposite. Picture what you want to achieve and then be intentional in starting to act as this was already happening. This is probably the thing that I always do and also helps me out as leaders, as executives. We are very ambitious. We always want to grow. We are hardworking. This doesn't just help me out to do my job as a leader for my day-to-day duties, but also help me out as Massimo that, again, for how much, of course, I love what I'm doing at the moment and I want to stay in my current company forever. Is it realistic that I'm going to stay in the current company for the next 40 years of my career, because then either I win the lottery or it's going to be the time that I need to still be employed somewhere, helps me out, but Massimo, in 5 years, 10 years, what's the role that you want to have? And this helps me out even for public speaking. I want to be a public speaker. I want to start talking about leadership topics. Perfect. Let's assume that I already have that status. Let's build a newsletter. Let's make sure that I can participate to this conference, that conference. And then all of a sudden, this happens. And this is the norm, being here with you or be the CTO Craft 100. I achieved it, and now I'm not happy. I want to do something else, but that's another topic.
But it keeps you focused and working backwards from a goal rather than sort of what are the steps forward and all the sort of wobbles all over the place to get there. Yeah, absolutely.
And then potentially as a bonus, but is also my tool for the personal life, is our role is taking decisions, right? Not all the decisions are easy. If we were in the business of easy, trivial decisions, we wouldn't be hired, because let's say our hiring managers, our leaders will be able to take these decisions themselves.
Or just use ChatGPT for it.
Indeed. Sometimes we cover an area, sometimes why we are people in our role that don't generate value directly.
Yeah.
And this is something that sometimes when I go to sleep and I'm like, I just got a mortgage. Should I, let's say, for how long my employer is gonna deal with me that I don't generate value directly? We are in the business of taking decisions and making calls. Calls are not always apparent, so require complexity, require asking questions, require taking some time to marinate in your head, but also sometimes they are hard. If something doesn't work out, you have the chance to don't do anything and keep something that you know doesn't work for months and potentially tamper your own luck, because all you know, we also have our own career, we also have our own performance, we also have our own goals, or try in the most human, empathic way possible, but take the hard decisions when they need to be taken. Don't delay them. If you don't have a clear reason to delay them, there is not just, today I felt bad, I don't want to do it today, right? Don't delay hard calls at work, in life, because all in all, you are the ones that have to deal with the consequences of delaying these hard calls, right? Because if your brain, your perspective, your opinions get you this call yourself, means that you are reading reality in a certain way. Don't also make this favor to yourself of fixing the situation and making sure that you can deal with a better environment yourself right away. For our, again, it's easier said than done. It's not that, again, we are all humans, we are not cyborgs. There is a lot of baggage sometimes, but that's how, in the end, what helps me out is that's our job in the end.
Cool. So if I try and summarize all of those points up then into a really concise version of the playbook, you had number one, build trust early. And part of that you said was creating your network. Number two was probably the most obvious one on the list, work hard and work intentionally.
Let's try to give a spin that is, I know that sounds absolutely obvious, but I don't know, in my mind, there is a spin that is a little bit more, like even when it's not easy and when it's not trivial, putting an hour more, and again, this doesn't want to be, again, we are humans, we have our own work-life balance is the most important stuff, etc. But if you're in doubt, if it makes sense to write that document more or to check that, I don't know, that code that no one is asking you to check, do it, because more knowledge is never an issue.
Absolutely. And I think another sort of key subtext to that is, even though nobody's watching, even though nobody's appreciating what you're doing, the hard work is still going to count and pay off.
That you said it, you see, I can tell that you're a podcast host. You said it much, I should have said it like that, but absolutely. Put the hard work, even if no one is watching, because in the end, when you're gonna be called to take a specific decision, hard work compounds, the question that you asked compounds, and then you're going to be a much better leader when it counts. if you did all the unglamorous and boring work that you really didn't want to do on a Monday morning, but you did it, and it's going to come back helpful in the future.
So number 3 then, picture the future and build a strategy in reverse, backwards from that future vision. Number 4, be curious. I mean, this is something that I keep saying again and again. And when I'm coaching people, be curious, ask the questions, ask why. Be like the 5-year-old child who just keeps asking why. It's so powerful. Number 5, be genuinely helpful.
Yeah.
Number 6, this is an interesting one. Earn legitimacy with your team. And this one, there's several different ways of understanding this one. So put a bit of color around this one for us.
And it's a little bit related to what I said earlier on. Like sometimes we have the feeling that people like to work with us, or let's say take orders from us. And it's something that I hate, but take orders from us, or they're happy to work together with us just because we have a title. Oh, CTO, head of, we are the ones giving the grade at the end of the cycle. Granted that it's true up to a certain point, right? Because of course we give the grade, but there is calibration, whatever. But in my past, if I look at myself, because once again, leaders are employees themselves. Leaders report to other leaders if they're not the owner, and the CEO report to the board, right? I like to work with people that I genuinely respect professionally. While we expect as a leader that this doesn't happen in reverse. My job is, of course, delivering, is, of course, taking decisions, is, of course, building trust, but is having a team of people that enjoys working with me on solving problems. If I'm not able to build that legitimacy right away, I might have the best vision, I might have the best strategy, I might have the best manager possible. But if then I have a team that doesn't respect me professionally, I didn't prove them that I'm genuinely helpful and I want to do a great job with them and for them, nothing is going to matter and nothing is going to actually work out. So build that legitimacy with people, because again, you can come in as a company as the CTO, of course, out of fear. People are gonna, let's say, respect and do what you are asking for the first 2 or 3 months. And I don't know, like, if I go there, like we both have enough experience to know that in the end, no matter how senior a person was, after 1 month, when the honeymoon phase ends, people start questioning decisions, start saying, oh, I would have done it differently. And this is absolutely healthy and this should keep happening. But if you don't manage to build this trust, this rapport of, I make a lot of mistakes, right? You probably did a lot of mistakes yourself. But I want to have a setup where my team sees me as a legitimate leader, person, knows my thought process, knows that I'm well-intentioned, know that I don't have secret agenda or something like. And if you don't build this right away with your team, whatever your team means, because when the organization starts to be large and large, you can't reach out to everyone, and then how can you be transparent? But build this legitimacy right away, and goes back to how we started de facto. We are in the business of humans.
Yeah.
And we need to be liked to some extent by these humans that in the end make our own luck and work, let's say, following or executing on this 3-page vision that we built 2 months ago. If this doesn't work out.
No, and this reminds me of a conversation I had with a VP engineering that I was coaching quite a few months ago now. And he'd been offered the position of CTO. And I was like, what's that to worry about? Why are you so concerned? He was very, very worried about it. And he came up with this phrase, which it stuck with me. He said, I don't want to wield the title. I want to earn it. So he was like, it's not, the title isn't a weapon. It's something you need to earn and live
Absolutely.
into. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So number 6, earn legitimacy with your team. And number 7, don't sweep problems under the rug. Yeah. Like hiding issues, hiding problems is one of those, it's a red flag. Whenever you see it in any level of an organization, you're thinking, uh-oh.
Absolutely. Then to some extent, like this is exactly what I said on the record. Then it's also true when you start to be, let's say, in leadership positions and you start to see that, again, things that look easy from the outside, then you look behind and you realize that, and that's a little bit the ask why, right? But sometimes things that look obvious, like don't put things under the carpet, then you probably understand where a specific thing was done in a certain way, and you put furniture over that carpet. You try to, you make it prettier, right? Like the stance is, of course, don't hide things under the carpet, take the hard calls as soon as possible, don't drag things that don't work out, but also understand that things that look obvious from the outside oftentimes always have a reason why they're kept in a specific way. Because again, as you said, always assume good intention and always assume that people in leadership positions or positions in power, they know what they're doing, right? Until proven contrary, hopefully, but they know what they're doing. If they took a specific decision for something that looks obvious for you, and this is the topic for company policies or, frozen headcount or stopping, like don't giving money for promotion this quarter, there's always a reason. And so don't assume that simple outcomes are driven by simple reasonings. Sometimes there is more than
There's
that.
There's almost always more to it, isn't there? Yeah. Massimo, it's been absolutely fabulous running through this with you. Where are you writing these days, and how can people get hold of you? How can people get hold of the newsletter?
Oh, yes. I have a newsletter on machine learning leadership because again, I think that nowadays the internet as a whole or social media it's full of everything. And I found this niche of I am a machine learning leader, and throughout my career, I never found resources. Oftentimes, I was not even managed myself by a machine learning leader. And so I said, okay, now that I managed to create for myself this career, why not trying to be helpful to others? And then there are literally no resources on how to do that. There is a lot of stuff on using AI, on building machine learning models, writers that are much more credible than I will ever be. But in this specific niche of how to set up machine learning teams, how to lead machine learning teams, I started a newsletter on Substack, The Imposter. You're going to find it on Substack, theimposter.substack.com, or go on my LinkedIn. You're going to find it in the
we'll put a link in the show notes as well.
Okay, perfect. Amazing. And that's my small attempt to be helpful to someone. If I manage to be helpful to a 5 years back or 10 years back Massimo that is looking for resources when it's extremely hard in this domain to find any, I'm going to be an happy man. It's completely no profit. I do it in my free time. But I mean, if I can become a millionaire out of it, we go back to the topic of the less years I still have to be employed for how much I enjoy my job. But no, that's it. And then LinkedIn, connect, and I'm very happy to chat with peer leaders in this industry or other industries. I tend to reply, and that's probably another playbook rule that I know that is very toxic, but I tend to reply in 20 seconds, like emails, Slacks, messages. If I'm available, I'm annoyingly fast in replying. So if someone has a question or wants to discuss about something, again, time zone might play here also. I probably not setting myself up for success, but I tend to reply very fast to pretty much everyone.
Moderate on your own personal playbook. Be responsive.
be responsive. Be responsive and be available. But probably it could be a superset of build the legitimacy with your team. If they see you as far away that is not even able to manage their inbox, it's hard for them to get to see you as a legitimate leader.
Yeah. Excellent. Massimo, thank you very much. I love asking one final question before we sign off, which is that if you were to give one tip to somebody who's just stepped into the CTO role or just stepped into a data leadership role, what would you give them? Don't assume that past decisions are still correct, right? Question everything. There is a little bit, without being polemic. It's not that you need to be the annoying person that wants to reinvent the wheel, but in a very kind and, let's say, curious way. Don't assume that things that operate in a certain way should operate like that forever, because to some extent, it's out. Like we are there and we're getting the job because there is something to fix. So start with the foundation and have your own set of non-negotiables and principles, but question old things. Sometimes they're okay. Yeah, like again, sometimes things are as they are because of a very good reason, but at least find out what's that reason and don't think about it again. Yeah, in our industry where things move so fast, often something's changed between then and
Indeed. Now. 100%.
Massimo, thank you very much. On that note, for those people who've not been watching on the video version of this, you've missed a glorious sunset over Barcelona while we've been speaking. Massimo, thanks so much.
Thanks, Adam. It's been a massive pleasure and hope that has been helpful to someone.
Thank you for listening to the whole episode. I appreciate your time. So just before you go, I'd like to ask you for a favor in return for putting together this episode of the CTO Playbook for you. Please share the episode with just one person who will appreciate it. Wherever you're listening, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or another platform, sharing the episode will help more CTOs find the podcast and enable me to create more great content. Remember that you can find more information on the CTOplaybook.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of the CTO Playbook.